Science for Everyday Decisions, series by Center for Sustainable Development at the Earth Institute, Columbia University. For your consideration for a more sustainable life through education for sustainable development. So thank you for joining, everyone. We're continuing our series of student research topics, especially this week we're featuring Mr. William Bertolotti students from Plainedge High School in Long Island, New York. We've covered a lot of topics so far, and today is yet another topic that might be new to a lot of our eco-ambassadors and very innovative. So Will, I'll pass it over to you for Cody Kanyaro's introduction.
Oh, great. Thank you. So hello, everybody. My name's Will. And so today we have Cody, and Cody really is an inspiration. He really represents the fact that, young students, regardless of age, could really embrace science and really explore novel approaches to utilizing the scientific method, to apply that to restoring the environment. And so Cody's been working on his project for the past month or so in earnest. And what started off as a preliminary research interest has turned into a full project line, looking and reshaping our thoughts on how we can restore the environment given the rampant pollution that the earth faces. And I hope as you see Cody's work, you'll see that it's a work in progress, that there's learning. There's definitely been an incredible level of growth, a level of growth that you can all achieve, and also a level of growth that still has a lot of steps, right, to go forward. And so with that, my hope is, Cody, you'll show your presentation. We'll get some feedback, right? And then maybe we could set up the next steps for you to document your work, share the work, and maybe serve as a motivation for other student researchers across the globe. All right? Great, Cody. So it's all you, buddy.
All right. All right, so this is my project. It is called Sunflower Remediation, a proposed project. So a little introduction. My name is Cody Kanyaro. I'm a freshman at Plainedge High School. As a researcher, I wanted to figure out the mysteries of the world and to discover what was not previously known. Looking into all the problems with the world faced with pollution, I want to formulate a solution that would identify the scope of pollutants in my community and implement an environmentally friendly way of remediating the soil. So it really helped when Mr. B showed me this project and I took on this challenge. So when I was researching phytoremediation in plants, I was also researching some history into it being used throughout different fields. So it was actually used in Chernobyl, and then I began researching some of the effects, what happened, and how they used it. So in April 26, 1986, there were 4 reactors in Chernobyl, and the 4th one blew up. And the death rate was pretty severe, with 30 people dying in a few months, 60 in the following years, and about 4,000 in the long term from different diseases and cancer from radiation. So the exclusion zone became about 1,000 square miles, and what happened with that, in that 1,000 square miles, the water became contaminated, all the soil became unusable, and everything in there, the plant life, the animals, are either dead, and we just cannot use the soil anymore. So sunflower remediation applied to Chernobyl. They used sunflowers to clean up some of the waste. The reason they used it was because it was much cleaner, more cost effective. For example, it costs about $100 to $400 to excavate 1 square meter of plant soil. But with sunflowers, it only cost about $15 to $40. And one of the best parts was that sunflowers are widely accepted by the public for being more clean and eco-friendly. So now, one question is, what is phytoremediation and how does it work? So sunflowers are these things called hyperaccumulators, which can survive in nuclear waste and radioactive isotopes. high concentration metals like soil with high concentration of metals like iron and cesium is able to survive. What happens is it soaks up contaminants of the roots, and they mistake certain radioactive isotopes for different types of nutrients that it needs. Like for example, ruthenium mimics iron, and cesium mimics potassium. Two of the subcategories of phytoremediation that goes with my project best is rhizofiltration, which is just the absorption, concentration, and precipitation of heavy metals through water, and phytoextraction, which is the extraction and accumulation of contaminants in harvestable plant tissues. So the overall methodology for what I'm going to do is first I'm going to identify a target area of interest. I'm going to collect sediment and soil samples from that target of interest, test the samples for nitrogen and pollutants, and quantify those pollution levels, transplant the sunflowers into the soil sample, observe the growth over a period of time of the sunflowers, and then conduct measurements of presence of pollution in sunflower roots, stem, and leaves, and then in the soil sample, finally measure the nitrogen and pollutant levels in it. So I have already found an area of interest, the Nissequogue River. So according to the New York NEMO program from 1991, the Nissequogue River is a heavily polluted river and pollutants can enter through the highway, through homes, and septic tanks and leach waste. We picked 4 spots to collect these soil samples from that we believe are probably the most polluted parts of the river. So the 4 places we've picked is the Route 25 overpass, which is runoff from the highway, could include fuel and other roadway waste, and we found that there's an auto body shop right there that can also contribute to the pollution of that river. There's a narrow and meandering stream, which is in proximity to many residential homes, which can pollute it further from like sewage and higher than nitrate levels. The open mouth to the Long Island Sound right here, which the river terminates here, potentially bring pollutants into the sound, and it also could probably take some pollutants from the sound, which is, as you know, the sound has been very polluted for a long time now. And finally, the marina, which is just a dock with many private boats that may pollute the water and soil around it, from gas leaks to oil spills. Next is some sample testing. We got these soil test kits, which test for nitrogen, pH, and dissolved oxygen. And at the Brookhaven National Lab, we will use X-ray fluorescence to test the presence of petroleum and fuel waste, mercury, lead, and cadmium. We were going to test the soil before and after the sunflower. We exposed them to the sunflowers to see how much of it was taken up. Now, how we transplanted the sunflowers, because what we started with was I began growing them at my house, but there was just not enough. There just wasn't enough space there for the sunflowers to grow into what they truly could be. So we moved them to the greenhouse and we transplanted them into bigger pots. So first what we did was we planted the seeds into the soil about 2 inches deep in 6 to 8 inch pots, watered them until they began to sprout, and then when the sunflowers got tall, we tied them to a support to keep them straight, and we just water them regularly. Before the coronavirus, I also collected some data on the growing conditions, the temperature, humidity level, and the level of sunlight in the greenhouse when I went there. So these are the sunflowers. They started very small. In just a number of weeks, they grew to about 1-2 feet, and after that, we had to transplant them to the greenhouse for extra space. Now, how we're going to measure the pollution levels is I will dissect the portions of the plant. I will take the soil sample from the pots, and these samples will be brought to the Brookhaven National Labs for testing. We will see are the pollutants concentrated in a specific area of the plant, and we can detect a reduction in pollutants in the soil. So some future work is using sunflower's remediation properties. We can clean up polluted rivers and water, and we can also partner with local businesses to employ Long Island native plants to rehabilitate polluted land, create phytoremediation gardens, and save wildlife. And we don't just have to use sunflowers because there's dozens of hyperaccumulators that will work just as well and can just make the community look nicer. So my proposal is I would explore the ways to automate the watering process through remotely run irrigation systems, which me and Mr. Bertolotti are working on right now, and we will teach interested students on how to build their own devices. I will document my work and share what I have learned with the elementary school students, which will create a viable link between the high school and elementary school research collaboration. And then bringing in the community, I can present my ideas to research in the school and the research community. And these are just all the references that I've used to help me with my project. And thanks for listening. Any questions?
Wow, thank you, Cody. Before we go into maybe some of the questions, I know right before our recording started, you kind of talked about how you got into this research in the first place. Can you share a little bit more on that, how you got into it?
So when I first got into it, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do my project on, but I kept hearing a lot on the news and everything about climate change and how pollution and how it's destroying ecosystems. So I thought I might want to do a project on that. And then when Mr. Bertolotti he brought this idea up to me, I thought about it and I said, yeah, this would be a good opportunity to learn more about this subject and try and help people and help the community.
That's great. We'll open it up to questions.
This is fascinating. I could never imagine that sunflower had these potentials of like taking up, absorbing all these pollutants, and so this is really a very interesting topic for me, and also it gives back a lot of how the nature itself has a lot of potential to keep curing its own issues. So again, going back to nature, and it's not like a gadget or something that you have done something or like a air pollution gadget that's out there and some engineers have made it. It's a very natural way of understanding what are the pollutants and what's going on. So I think it's a very fascinating research study to focus on. So thanks, Cody, for actually bringing this thing to light and for us to understand this particular topic from the presentation. So no questions on my end, so just was one observation.
Thank you.
I had a couple quick questions for you, Cody. Thank you so much for your presentation, and this is so interesting. I actually just learned very recently that sunflowers can be used for this kind of purpose. So that's so great that you're such an expert in this already. But one of the questions I had was, you mentioned that you were monitoring the levels of daylight and the temperature and things like that in the greenhouse, and I was just wondering how you did that, tools you used. And then the second question was, you mentioned that there's a lot of other hyperaccumulators, and I was hoping you might name some for us.
So the ways we really got the all the sunlight levels and stuff is in the greenhouse. There was a little device on the wall that just told us the humidity, and there was a thermometer sitting there. And with the daylight and with the sunlight levels, we just kept it very basic with just simple sunny, cloudy, rainy, just like some very basic, just know what's happening.
Like journaling, just just record of that.
And
how about the hyperaccumulators?
Some other hyperaccumulators I know of there is mustard seed and willows. Those two, I'm pretty sure that those are hyperaccumulators. And I believe those are the only two I can name off the top of my head besides for sunflowers. But there's like dozens of them.
Nice. I'm going to definitely read up on that.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cody, I had a question about the measurement that you have planned for the sunflower. Is there any kind of research that has already been done on the cycle and the timeline of how much the sunflower takes up for itself, and then does it ever release it, or is it just always contained once it soaks it up from the soil?
So The first part, has there been past research? Yeah, so there's been some research done on Chernobyl and what happened there. I was just reading an article a couple days back about this one group of researchers. It was at the, I believe, United States, what was it? United States Military Academy. And what they were doing was they made a model that can show how efficient the sunflowers would be, and they made two models on two different programs, and it was shown that it was efficient. And what was your second question?
So like once they take it up, for example, you know, when we say sunflowers, I also think of like sunflower seeds, right?
Yeah.
So like those are meant to be edible. So because they have already soaked up the contaminants in their own like roots and in the leaves, could the sunflowers then ever be like for edible purposes? Can we ever use
Release
them?
it?
Or because
Yeah. So what they do is when they release it is after they through phytostabilization, they stabilize the plant to make sure it's all the contaminants are in a stable form that don't harm you as much, and then through phytovolatilization it can release it as like vapor into the air, and it doesn't harm anybody.
whoa, so it naturally does that? It kind of
Yeah.
releases.
It just releases it into the atmosphere through a volatile form.
Man,
No,
that is incredible.
Amazing.
Mother
Yeah.
Nature.
it really is, and just to I guess cut in also, like Cody was doing his research, and it really struck me in the sense that like you look at something as catastrophic as Chernobyl, and here you have just the magnitude of radioactive waste. It's lethal, it's toxic, it lasts for decades, and here they're using something as simple as sunflower to address the problem. And then Cody, if you go back to the slide that had the researcher with the sunflowers.
This one?
Yeah, just the image there is, believe the literature said that the isotopes stay in the root system and they don't migrate up into the higher levels of the plants and the sunflowers. And so what these researchers found was they would create an aquaculture, Cody?
Um,
They would be submerged in the water.
yeah, I think so. I forget if that's what it's called, but I believe so.
And then afterwards, you have the roots that have taken in all the radioactive isotopes. And then all you do is you cut the roots out, put the plant back into the water. The plant regrows the roots, continues what it's doing, and now you just have the roots with the radioactive waste that you can then isolate.
Oh my God, unbelievable. How, like, so this is really interesting that the plant actually regrows its roots again.
Yeah. It's basically, I guess, the same principle as a stem cutting, and then you're just putting it to work.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
The nature at
unbelievable.
its best. Yeah. Amazing.
I live in a neighborhood called Greenpoint, and because of all the like oil leaks and the different factories that were here many years ago, overall, just as a neighborhood, apparently the Greenpoint soil has a lot more lead content than other neighborhoods in Manhattan, I mean, New York City area. So apparently the tenant who used to live here previously planted some tomato plants, not knowing about the lead levels here. And then the tomatoes grew, but they were all deformed. So that's how high the lead content was. But now I'm thinking, wow, if the sunflower can do that kind of cleanup and natural cleanup and even just like furnish itself, kind of reset itself, I guess, then that could be a huge tool even for like different yards and different green spaces here.
Yeah.
It's cool just seeing, Cody in the greenhouse growing these plants. He's like both farmer, he's a scientist, and he's an eco activist, all wearing like in the same, I guess, many hats for the same role.
This is truly fascinating. It has a science element, and just the research topic itself is truly fascinating. And I'm sure, there can be many more different strands of research from this, through Cody's work.
Thank you.
I'm even wondering, Cody, like moving forward,
Yeah.
As a project, this is just fun, just getting to work in the greenhouse,
Yeah, it's fun.
right? I'm wondering, like, what we could do with, let's say, the elementary school kids or the middle school kids. I'd get them both active and maybe interested in helping the environment. Any ideas on your end?
Well, I guess for starts, what we can do is just we can show them like a little presentation to fill them in on like the real basics of phytoremediation, just so they know what it is. Then we could show them some sunflowers, and if they're interested, we can maybe help. They can help out with the projects, and when they get up to the high schools, they can find their own Intel project that they have a passion for.
That's great, Cody. If you can work on like a very simple PowerPoint presentation just on the concept itself, I'll be happy to circulate it in the school district here, if possible. Just very simple, like a simple idea of what it is, and maybe just a video of you doing all this work. I think it will be great.
All right.
And Cody, beyond the school system, do you have some plans to share your research findings as you kind of do the data collection and monitor?
At the moment, not really. It's like we can team up with some like local gardens and parks, and if they have contaminated soil or something, then we can help with the cleanup, and they can make gardens to help give some make some fresh vegetables and stuff.
That just makes me think that, there's probably a lot of people, even in their own backyard and things, that don't know about that. If their soil is contaminated, they wouldn't think that it would be. I know that's I didn't think about that when I first moved where I live now, and then learned later that we have very contaminated soil here. So yeah, I think doing something with the schools and getting parents involved too, and sharing info like about those simple soil test kits that you used, it could help people kind of bring that information home so that they don't harm themselves if they're gardening at home and things like that too.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned, like kind of local parks, but if you can maybe have some kind of communication with the park management, or like New York City parks, they have all the different parks, but there's kind of like a central office that acts as an admin for managing all the parks. So if you share findings with that kind of entity, I feel like it would be hugely beneficial.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like one area I was thinking of was I know that the Gowanus Canal is a famous hotspot for heavy metal pollution and other, I guess, carcinogens, and I'm wondering whether or not, maybe down the road we could see whether or not this type of phytoremediation works there. And in a way, it's like your project, Cody, combines both, right, the environmental aspect and also this like urban beautification aspect. They just look nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of buy-in and the cost, it sounds like it is very effective in that way to present to a city, for example, or park management.
How long did the Cody? What was the growth cycle for the sunflowers that you raised? How long did they?
I think after planting them, they took probably like a couple weeks to It took like a 2 or 3 weeks to start sprouting out, but then after that, they just started shooting up. So it honestly doesn't take as long to really start to grow as we first thought of it. But yeah, it doesn't take long. It doesn't take too long.
It's almost like we could have like elementary school class pets for each of the kids. Like, here's your sunflower, and here's how sunflowers work. And then here's how you could use sunflowers. And then Cody, and this is what you're doing. And then, really inspire, another cohort of students.
And maybe they can even plant it and start by planting it in their homes. But when it's time to transplant it to larger, that's when they could like maybe all bring it in too.
Yeah.
I mean, all research topics are really interesting and there's something I learned, but this is really mind blowing. Like I had no idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really cool that, I guess another reminder that we can turn to nature for solutions. They're there, right? And really it's science as a form of exploration.
Yeah, this doesn't require any technology or doesn't require like something else, and it just requires nature itself to cure itself. We just need to know about it, and maybe we can educate ourselves and others more about it. It's just phenomenal.
And I think I think what's amazing is, it's very easy to forget that Cody, you're a freshman. You're presenting this work, and you've done a lot of homework, and you've already put a lot of time, before and after school, tending the sunflowers, structuring this method, right? It's like the fact that you're able to do this now, right? I can't even imagine what you're going to accomplish in the next 2-3 years. And for other students too, right, you really send such an important message to kids all over the world that you can start right now, right? What can you do right now, right? What questions do you have, right? Start thinking, start asking the what ifs, the how can I's, right? And then from there, right, you demonstrate, you just got started, and look at the momentum you built up.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Cody, along those lines, do you have anything that you wanted to share, and whether it's about your research process or maybe something you want to share with your peers or even younger eco ambassadors who are going to be watching this? Do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Well, not really. One thing that I also found interesting that I didn't really think about was that if you think about it, if all sorts of farms, if they get contaminated too, then they can also then it can maybe even ruin an entire country's economy, because if their soil gets contaminated, then they can't grow crops to feed their people, have exports, and it could really ruin an economy if soil gets contaminated. So that's just an interesting point I thought I'd bring up.
Right, and I think when you just think of soil on its own, it doesn't really feel like it's relevant to our day to day. But yeah, when you put it that way, you realize
If you
just how much we're
really think
relying.
about what's happened, like the real consequences
Yeah.
are, then it's great.
Yeah, that's a great point. Do we have any other questions for Cody? Or Will, any other last comments?
I guess we're gonna continue the work. Our hope is, right, Cody, you've got some solutions moving forward. Given our new, I guess, the new logistical constraints, and then fingers crossed, you'll have some more results to present. You'll have that PowerPoint to show others how to reproduce what you did, and then you'll have some real products that bring about some meaningful change.
All right.
So in essence, I guess Cody's been a real inspiration on my end. The fact that young student researchers are quite capable, and really if they've got the passion and they've got the interest, he's put in a lot of time into this, and it really shows. And so hope is, right, we keep up the acceleration, keep up the momentum, and then from there, see where your explorations take you.
All right.
Sounds like a great plan. Yeah,
Well,
thank you. Please keep us posted on your continued research.
And as always, thanks so much. Thanks so much for this open forum for these students. Just being able to present their work, being able to present their ideas, I think is absolutely invaluable. To the aspiring scientist. And I think venues like this and opportunities like this are just great for students. So thank you very much.
Thank you for this partnership. I think we're just learning so much, and I feel like it's a true win-win situation for us. So yeah, thanks for the enthusiasm and the leadership you're taking with the students, the research advising you're doing, and for just being so involved with our Eco Ambassador program as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.